It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here on WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160. And on the line with us on this first day of the Masters, Armen Keteyian. He and Jeff Benedict have written this book, Tiger Woods. That's all the title you need for something like that. Armen, good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
It's great to have you with us here today. And this past week for you must have just been a whirlwind with the not only getting the book out, but then the reaction, and then answering some of the criticisms. This just has to just been crazy for you in this past week.
Well, it's been pretty wild. I mean, when you spend 3 years, putting something like this book together, you don't really know what the reaction is going to be. We knew we had produced a really powerful narrative, and we were very proud of it. But in this day and age, you don't know, particularly when you're dealing with the world of golf, you don't really know how that world is going to react and how the literary world is going to react. But right off the bat, we got a fantastic review from the New York Times, which sort of set the table for us. And since then, the reviews have been great. And Jeff and I have been like two ships kind of passing in the night. He's doing a bunch of publicity for the book, as am I.
One of the things that, as I'm reading the book, I'm seeing Tiger Woods, the 2018 version, and I'm reading about going back 20 and 25 and even 30 years earlier to that Tiger Woods, and they're two different Tiger Woods. But then I say to myself, that earlier Tiger Woods, I wasn't aware of how he was pictured back then because the media was covering up so much of what he was really like. So can I trust this version? Have you experienced that as well?
I mean, when you spend the amount of time that we did doing the research and the reading and then the reporting and the interviewing, I don't think the media covered it up so much, as the media was never really able to penetrate the force field that was around Tiger, first created by his parents when they were raising him and programming him to be the next great superstar in the world of golf, to change the game of golf, the chosen one, as Earl so aptly described Tiger at one point in time. And then when he got into the professional ranks, he had IMG and two very powerful agents. First, Hughes Norton, who lasted about 2 years, a very protective, very aggressive sports agent. And since then, he's had Mark Steinberg, who is nicknamed Dr. No because he basically says no to everything regarding requests for individual media time with Tiger. So, Todd, this is not our first rodeo. Jeff and I, between the two of us, we've done 25 nonfiction books. We knew that Tiger's people were going to be, at some point in time, aggressive in their response. And you mentioned some of the criticisms that they raised. And frankly, we went through them. And, in a book that's 404 pure pages of narrative with tens of thousands of facts in it, there were literally a handful of either inadvertent mistakes or typographical errors that Steinberg and his Tiger's chief spokesman, Glenn Greenspan, seized upon, but they're really inconsequential in terms of the narrative, and that's what they've been paid to do and tried to protect for the last 20 years, as you mentioned, is the answer to the question is, who is Tiger Woods?
When you started to write this book 3 years ago, it was a whole different picture of Tiger than the one that we have now. How stunned are you by the turnaround in not only his golf game and the fact that he actually can golf again, but how he has matured and how he's changed so much?
Well, when we started, it was basically the early 2015, and he was a mess physically at that point in time, and really, it was a leap of faith by Jeff and I that we could write a book that would take in the kind of narrative that we've put together and the sort of Shakespearean quality of Tiger's life. But you're right, and when we really got serious writing was really at the beginning of 2017. We wrote really hard through the entire year, and that was not a great year for Tiger. In Memorial Day weekend, that was the now infamous sort of DUI charge on the side of the road in Florida, and Jeff and I were talking about the end of the book, trying to figure out how we were going to close out the narrative, and it didn't look very positive at that point in time. In fact, it looked rather tragic at that point in time. Sad was the word that came up time and time again. And then, no, we did not anticipate this miraculous comeback. And I think it really relates to a couple things. One, the back fusion surgery, spinal fusion really worked, and it relieved all that debilitating pain that Tiger was in. But, he crawled out of a really dark, deep, cavernous hole with everything that had happened to him, personally, but also, he beat an opiate addiction, which a lot of people in this country have succumbed to over the last year. 50,000 plus deaths alone from pain-killing drugs. And, to Tiger's credit, he came out. He's healthier. He's more engaged. He's more human. And I've seen him a lot over the last 3 years in various situations. He's a different person. And thankfully, at 42, he's a different person. And it's great to see, and it makes the Masters, all that more captivating and exciting to watch.
As you have watched this season unfold, and from a marketing standpoint for your book, this has to be fantastic. My goodness.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's literally pennies from heaven for us. But we just got lucky. And I guess if hard work equals luck, everything fell into place. There was a decision by Simon & Schuster to move the book up in front of the Masters, which in retrospect was brilliant by John Karp, who's the president and publisher of Simon & Schuster. And they knew they had something special, and they were just trying to figure out where to put it. And we got lucky in that sense. But I'm not going to apologize for that, because I know how much Jeff and I worked and how we really tried to write something that was completely different in tone and in texture and in depth and in sweep and in insight. And the reviews have reflected that, so we're grateful.
Did you have an idea when you started this whole process of how deep and sometimes disturbing the stories would be, and then having to put them into words? No,
I think we knew that there was this overarching narrative, and it's pretty easy to lay out. It's the rise of the child star, the prodigy, the great run that he had for more than a decade in dominating golf. You had the epic fall from grace that we all know about, that began in November of 2009. You had the reckoning, where he had to deal with the incredible scandal and the publicity and the humiliation that went with it. You have the reckoning, where he has to go into sex addiction treatment and try to find out who he really is. And you had some sort of return. You just didn't know what it was going to be. And now you have this rise at the end again. And so we knew we had that arc because it played out very publicly. But filling in all those arcs and all those sections of the book, the way that we did, with the kind of detail and the scene setting and the new characters that emerged from people that we interviewed, that just comes from really hard work and finding people and gaining their trust and allowing them to offer the insight that they did and not be judgmental about it. And that's hard to do at times with Tiger, because there are certain parts of his life where he's not a very nice person.
Mm-hmm.
And he's incredibly entitled, but then you have to put it in perspective. And I think that's one of the things the book does so well. When you see him acting certain ways, there's an understanding that comes from that because of the way what's preceded it. And that's I think, give us a little bit of a pat on the back, that's pretty artful to do.
Yeah, and you can see very much that he was engineered to be the way that he is, both in his personal life. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that was the consequence, but that was the result of the way that he was raised. But he was also engineered to be just a tremendous golfer. And when you look back at that and you just focus on the golf, it's really a breathtaking talent, isn't it?
Those are two great words. engineered. We used kind of the word programmed, but we always saw him as almost like a computer programming, machine that had been programmed by his parents, coded by his parents in certain ways. And then breathtaking talent is another terrific phrase, because he was. And that's one of the things that Jeff and I wanted to remind people, even hardcore golfers, who have followed his career since '96 or even back into his amateur days. One of the things we wanted to do in the book is just refresh people's minds to just what kind of genius he was, and whether it was the record-breaking win at the Masters by 12 strokes, or another record of 15 strokes at the 2000 U.S. Open, or some of his 2000 epic battle with Bob May at the PGA at Valhalla, or two of the shots he hit, one in Firestone in 2000, and literally a shot in the dark, and another one a week later at the Canadian Open, where he hit a 6-iron 213 yards from a bunker over water with trees right, and lands at 2 feet past the pin. I mean, nobody does that. He was, like we say, he had kind of beaten every other pro into submission, and by that time he's really competing with sort of Mother Nature. I mean, that's the breathtaking nature of his talent, and it was great to write that stuff because, as I said, it's good to remind people that this is a once in a lifetime talent, and with that once in a lifetime talent comes the question: what is the cost of genius? And that was the other really driving part of the narrative of the book, is to try to answer that question, because it took a tremendous toll, personal and professional toll, on Tiger.
It was a very steep price to pay, and we'll get to watch as the next chapter unfolds here this weekend at the Masters, and hopefully for a long time. As fragile as he has been in the last 10 years or so, you just don't know how long it's going to last, so you really have to have a new appreciation of it.
You got to enjoy it while it lasts, and hopefully for he's, as I say, he's like Shakespeare. He comes around once, and you may never see him again. So enjoy it while you can. He's
Armen Keteyian. He and Jeff Benedict have written this fascinating book, Tiger Woods. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Todd.
Have a great day.
Okay.